In the intricate tapestry of my family, Eleanor, Ellie to those few who bothered with familiarity, was a thread easily overlooked. My sister, Victoria, or Tori as she was universally known, 3 years my senior, commanded the spotlight with an effortless grace that seemed to relegate me to the wings of our family drama. It often felt as if she were their sole progeny. Every coveted acquisition, be it the newest census smartphone, a pair of limited edition Astaire sneakers, or the sleekest Novabook Pro, was first bestowed upon Tori. When she inevitably upgraded, her cast-offs became my reluctant inheritance. Our family, residing comfortably in the affluent suburbs of Chicago, certainly wasn't teetering on the brink of poverty. It was simply that my existence, my desires, seemed to be a footnote in the grand narrative of their lives. My maternal grandmother, Iris, was the solitary observer of this imbalance. During her visits, she would inspect my second-hand apparel with a subtle grimace, as though she'd encountered an unexpectedly sour note in a symphony. In these moments, she would deftly press a crisp envelope into my palm. "Acquire something truly delightful for yourself, dear," she'd urge. "Something that whispers your name alone." Grandma Iris wasn't merely affluent. She possessed a rare, genuine attentiveness. Unlike my parents, Catherine and Richard, she delved into the minutiae of my world, inquiring about my classes at Northwood High, the dynamics of my friendships, and the nascent passions I nurtured, those commonplace inquiries that parents typically make, but which mine consistently neglected. By the time I reached 16, the veneer of my patience had fractured. The wearying invisibility within my own home, the perpetual charade of sporting Tori's outgrown fashions, the sensation of being an ethereal presence in my own family, it had all become intolerable. Resolved to forge my own identity, I secured employment at the Daily Grind, a bustling local coffee emporium. The labor was unglamorous, recording orders, managing the till, and the ceaseless cycle of wiping tables. Yet each painstakingly earned dollar was a declaration of self-worth. It was mine, untainted by the lingering shadow of Tori's discarded possessions. This foray into self-sufficiency yielded unforeseen dividends. I discovered a profound satisfaction in my earnings, in the knowledge that my purchases were unequivocally mine, free from the spectral debt to Tori's previous ownership. Grandma Iris perceived this nascent independence. She would often frequent the Daily Grind, observing me with a quiet pride from her corner table as she savored her latte, witnessing my flourishing on my own terms. Tori's 19th birthday unfolded like a debutante's ball, a grand pronouncement of her ascent into adulthood. My parents, Catherine and Richard, spared no expense, engaging a renowned event planner, securing the opulent ballroom at the Astoria Hotel, and summoning a legion of relatives. I dedicated the morning to assisting with the elaborate preparations, observing my mother, Catherine, meticulously curating every minute detail. As evening descended, the ballroom thrummed with an exuberant energy. Tori glided through the throngs, a vision in bespoke silk, accepting accolades with the regal composure of a queen at her investiture. I, meanwhile, hovered at the periphery, attired in my most presentable hand-me-down, endeavoring to meld into the ornate wallpaper. The evening's crescendo arrived when my father, Richard, rose to propose a toast to Tori, his countenance illuminated with paternal pride as he extolled her manifold virtues and accomplishments. The familiar ache of being the forgotten child intensified, my insignificance amplified on this grand stage. At the zenith of the revelry, my father, a triumphant glint in his eye, commanded the room's attention. Beside him, my mother, Catherine, practically vibrated with excitement, adding, "As you are all aware, Victoria has consistently been a student of exceptional caliber." I nearly permitted myself an eye roll at the well-worn paean. My father, his chest swelling, proclaimed, "We are ecstatic to announce that Victoria will be matriculating at the prestigious Wentworth University this autumn." A wave of applause washed over the room. Wentworth was an Ivy League bastion, an institution where the annual tuition fees alone could eclipse the mortgage on a modest suburban home. We've been meticulously saving for this since she was a mere child, Richard elaborated, his posture one of immense satisfaction. It hasn't been without its challenges, but we firmly believe that nothing is too good for our Victoria. It was at this juncture that Grandma Iris rose, her expression set in a stern configuration. I recognized instantly, the look that signaled she had witnessed an intolerable excess. "That is indeed splendid news," she began, her voice cutting through the diminishing applause with surgical precision. "I am genuinely delighted for Victoria. However, I feel compelled to ask, have you established a comparable fund for Eleanor's higher education?" A palpable hush descended upon the ballroom. My parents appeared as though they'd been unexpectedly doused with icy water, their gazes plummeting to their polished shoes. My mother stammered, her cheeks suffused with a sudden crimson. "Oh, well, there's ample time, of course. Eleanor hasn't yet completed her secondary schooling." But Grandma Iris interjected, "That was not my inquiry, Catherine." Attempting a veneer of nonchalance, my mother responded, "Well, to be perfectly frank, Eleanor isn't quite Wentworth material in the same vein as Victoria. Her academic performance, she might perhaps find continued employment at the daily grind more suitable after graduation." The atmosphere in the room seemed to deflate. A sharp sting of humiliation pierced me. But before I could formulate a response, Grandma Iris was already extracting my most recent academic transcript from her handbag, the one showcasing a flawless array of A's and an A+ in advanced chemistry. "These grades," she challenged, holding the document aloft for all to scrutinize, "are these the scholastic achievements of someone ill-suited for university? The achievements you would be intimately familiar with. Had you ever thought to inquire about your younger daughter's academic life?" An unnerving silence enveloped the room as Grandma Iris enumerated my grades. My parents' expressions morphed from acute embarrassment to stunned disbelief. We were unaware," my father mumbled, his voice barely audible. "Precisely," Grandma Iris retorted, her voice as sharp as shattered crystal. "You are unaware because your singular focus on Victoria has rendered you oblivious to the very existence of your other daughter." "Mother, please." Catherine attempted to intervene, but Grandma Iris was implacable. "No, you will listen," she persisted. "Now, explain to me why no provision has been made for Eleanor's education. And do not prevaricate, Catherine. I instilled in you a greater regard for the truth." Under the immense pressure of the Assembly's scrutiny, my father confessed, we utilized all our savings for Victoria's Wentworth tuition." The collective gasp from the assembled relatives felt like a physical impact, making me long for invisibility. But Grandma Iris was not yet concluded. "So, you have allocated nothing for your younger child," she stated, her head shaking with a profound disdain. "Very well. In that case, I shall finance Eleanor's university education. Every last cent. Because it appears I am the sole adult in this room committed to equitable treatment for these young women." Torn between an overwhelming gratitude towards my grandmother and an urgent desire to flee the suffocating tension, I remained transfixed. Victoria, meanwhile, stared intently at her multi-tiered birthday cake as if it held the esoteric secrets of the cosmos. Following the debacle at Tori's birthday celebration, our home transformed into a bastion of cold, echoing silence. My parents seemed to nurse the conviction that I had somehow orchestrated the entire episode, manipulating Grandma Iris to expose their blatant partiality. An icy chill permeated our interactions, a silent testament to their unspoken accusations. That autumn, Tori departed for Wentworth University, and with her exodus, any vestige of warmth in our household seemed to dissipate entirely. My parents navigated their days like disembodied spirits, barely registering my presence. Occasionally, I would intercept glances that melded resentment with a deep-seated shame, as if I were the living embodiment of their public disgrace. I adhered to my established routine, diligently working at the daily grind and maintaining exemplary grades, existing within the resonant quietude of our home. Time unfolded with agonizing slowness, but eventually, my high school graduation loomed. I received an acceptance letter from Bridgewater State University, a respectable institution, though admittedly lacking the cachet of Wentworth. To me, it wasn't merely a university, it was a gateway to liberation. Grandma Iris's face illuminated with joy when I presented her with the acceptance letter, her pride a stark contrast to my parents' tepid acknowledgement. They attended my graduation ceremony, yet their presence was as remote as that of distant acquaintances, offering little more than a perfunctory card and a generic "well done," before reverting to animated discussions about Tori's latest academic triumphs. College became my haven. I resided in the campus dormitories and spent academic breaks at Grandma Iris's charming townhouse in the city. Infrequently, I would visit my parents, maintaining a superficial semblance of connection. These visits were predictably formulaic. I would be seated, and they would inundate the airwaves with chronicles of Tori's recent successes, her graduation summa cum laude, her coveted position at a prestigious consulting firm, her burgeoning relationship with Julian, a highly regarded investment banker poised to become her fiancé. I would listen in silence, my own accomplishments unbidden and unvoiced. Enduring these monologues, I offered only nods and faint smiles, allowing their words to recede into the ambient noise. Why expend the effort to share my own triumphs or aspirations? They had evinced no interest previously. There was no logical basis to presume a change now. Meanwhile, my father would effusively elaborate on Julian's affluent lineage and their flourishing real estate empire, sterling properties, painting a portrait of a future incandescent with perfection. In those moments, I would feel Grandma Iris's gaze upon me, her eyes filled with a profound understanding. She knew why I remained mute, why I permitted them to orbit solely around Tori without interjection. The battle for recognition had lost its allure years ago. "How are your studies truly progressing, Eleanor?" Grandma Iris would inquire once we were in private, her voice imbued with genuine warmth and curiosity. I would then unfurl the details of my coursework, my research projects, and my burgeoning ambitions. She engaged with every facet, offering insightful counsel and unwavering encouragement. Upon graduating from Bridgewater State, I secured a promising role at Innovate Solutions Group, a dynamic marketing agency in downtown Chicago. My assiduous efforts had finally culminated in tangible success. I had my own apartment in a vibrant neighborhood, a comfortable income, and a career trajectory that filled me with a quiet pride. As I meticulously constructed my independent existence, the chasm between my world and the one revolving around Tori became ever more pronounced. Yet, fortified by Grandma Iris's steadfast support, I navigated these disparate realities, cherishing the autonomy to shape a future entirely of my own design. Life was unfolding splendidly, defined by an exhilarating sense of freedom from my parents' gravitational pull. However, when Tori's wedding approached, my parents truly surpassed themselves. They orchestrated a lavish spectacle at a historic countryside manor, complete with manicured botanical gardens, a string quartet, a four-course gourmet repast, and an astonishingly intricate ice sculpture of a swan. I subsequently learned they had financed this grandiloquent affair with a staggering $750,000 loan against their primary residence. Despite my profound internal misgivings regarding their fiscal judgment, I maintained a diplomatic silence, focusing instead on partaking in my sister's joyous occasion. Tori was undeniably radiant, and her husband, Julian, appeared to be a genuinely amiable individual. A couple of years later, it was my turn to contemplate matrimony. Liam, my partner of 4 years, proposed, and I was overcome with elation. We organized a modest engagement soiree at my favorite Italian trattoria, inviting our closest friends and family, including, naturally, my cherished grandmother. The evening was progressing with delightful conviviality until Grandma Iris rose to offer a toast. Her eyes held that familiar, significant glint, the very same one I recalled from Tori's 19th birthday party. Addressing the assembled guests with warmth, she then pivoted pointedly towards my parents. "Catherine, Richard, you orchestrated such a breathtaking wedding for Victoria. I trust you are envisioning something equally splendid for Eleanor." An awkward stillness permeated the room. My parents squirmed perceptibly under Grandma Iris's unwavering gaze. My mother, contriving a strained smile, responded, "But of course. We desire nothing but the most beautiful weddings for both our daughters." Endeavoring to dissipate the palpable tension, I swiftly redirected the conversation. But Grandma Iris's words lingered, subtly altering the evening's ambience. A few days thereafter, my mother extended an invitation for me to visit and discuss wedding arrangements. With some reluctance, I acquiesced, opting to attend alone despite Liam's offer of accompaniment. Over dinner, my mother eagerly solicited my vision for the wedding. I articulated that Liam and I envisioned a small, intimate gathering of approximately 72 guests, with a meticulously planned budget of $40,000 funded from our personal savings. To my utter astonishment, my mother appeared aghast at this modest figure. "Absolutely not. That is entirely unacceptable. We shall assume responsibility for the wedding expenses, precisely as we did for Victoria's. Do not concern yourself with budgetary constraints. Select whatever your heart desires," she insisted with an uncharacteristic fervor. I was dumbfounded. After years of enduring the sting of being an afterthought, my parents were suddenly, inexplicably, eager to finance an opulent wedding for me. A disquieting sensation prickled at the edge of my consciousness, yet I couldn't quite articulate its source. For the first time, I felt a flicker of recognition as a true daughter, and I cautiously permitted myself to entertain the possibility that perhaps, just perhaps, Grandma Iris's persistent interventions had finally resonated with them. The wedding day itself was an ethereal dream. It transpired at a picturesque lakeside chateau, the ceremony staged near the tranquil, shimmering waters. Every detail, from the breathtaking floral installations to the exquisite culinary offerings, was executed to perfection. The atmosphere was one of unadulterated joy, and it seemed every guest was immersed in the celebratory spirit. As I surveyed the beautifully orchestrated panorama, I harbored a fervent hope that this signified a genuine transformation in my relationship with my parents, a mending of the chasm that had long defined our interactions. My parents genuinely appeared to relish the occasion, mingling with the guests and exhibiting a semblance of pride that, for once, felt authentic. Grandma Iris, a knowing twinkle in her eyes, drew me aside during the reception to express her profound happiness. "This is precisely what you deserve, my dear," she whispered, embracing me warmly. "I am so immensely pleased that your parents have finally risen to the occasion for your special day." She even sought out my parents to extend her gratitude for hosting such a magnificent event. Departing from the reception, Liam and I were euphoric, poised to savor our honeymoon in the idyllic climes of Santorini, blissfully insulated from all concerns save for each other and the dawn of our new life together. However, the stark reality intruded with brutal abruptness shortly after our return. Whilst unpacking, an email notification demanded my attention. The subject line read, with deceptive simplicity, "Wedding expenditures." Anticipating, perhaps, a courteous summary of the costs for our records, I opened the email, only to discover an itemized bill totaling an astounding $95,000, accompanied by a terse note from my mother. "We trust you will address this matter promptly. Payment instructions are attached." My hands trembled as a wave of disbelief crested into sheer shock. This could not be genuine. Liam, alerted by my choked gasp, approached. His expression transitioned from perplexity to unadulterated outrage as he perused the email. "They're invoicing us after vehemently insisting on covering the wedding expenses themselves? This must be some egregious misunderstanding," he asserted, though his tone betrayed a gnawing doubt. But it was no misunderstanding. The bill was unequivocally real, as was their expectation of reimbursement. That evening, we sat in stunned silence, scrutinizing our bank statements, grappling with the profound implications. "We have the funds," I stated, my voice hollow, alluding to the savings meticulously earmarked for the down payment on our first home. Liam suggested we attempted dialogue with my parents, hoping for some rational explanation. But deep within, the bitter truth resonated. There was no misunderstanding. This was merely another chapter in the depressingly familiar saga where they elevated my hopes only to dash them spectacularly. Except this time, they had waited until after the vows had been exchanged. With a heart laden with lead, I wrote the check for $95,000, watching our aspirations for a home dissolve with each stroke of the pen. Sealing the envelope, I felt not only a profound sense of betrayal, but also a steely resolve solidifying within me. "I am finished," I declared to Liam as we deposited the envelope into the mailbox. "I am finished trying, finished hoping, simply finished." "What about your grandmother?" he inquired softly, his concern palpable. "Should we apprise her of this?" I paused, the immense weight of the situation pressing down on me. "I cannot," I conceded. She was so visibly proud at the wedding, so genuinely happy. "I cannot inflict this upon her." That night, sleep proved elusive as I mentally replayed every overlooked portent, their sudden, uncharacteristic magnanimity, their insistence on an extravagant affair, their dismissive attitude towards my carefully constructed budget. I had yearned so desperately to believe in their transformation, and in my fervent desire, I had walked, clear-eyed, into their meticulously laid snare. Just as life began to settle into a semblance of new normalcy, Aunt Carol, my father's sister, a woman renowned for her invasively cheerful demeanor and notoriously unpalatable fruitcakes, materialized unannounced one Sunday afternoon, bearing a saccharine smile and a foil-wrapped confection. "Eleanor, my dear," she chirped, establishing the tone for what I intuitively knew would be an uncomfortable encounter. It had been a considerable interval since my last encounter with Aunt Carol, but, true to form, she had simply manifested on our doorstep, asserting she was merely in the vicinity and wished to ascertain how matrimonial life was treating me. Aunt Carol was the family's self-anointed town crier, perpetually eager to glean any morsel of gossip. Her visits were seldom brief. It often felt as though her primary objective was intelligence gathering rather than genuine social interaction. "May I offer you some coffee?" I proposed, steeling myself for what I anticipated would be more than a fleeting tête-à-tête. "Oh, that would be lovely, dear. Then we can engage in a proper catch-up," she responded, ensconcing herself on our sofa with the proprietary air of one settling in for an extended stay. Once comfortably situated, she plunged directly into her inquiries. "I haven't seen your parents in what feels like an eternity. How are they faring?" I occupied myself at the coffee machine, strategically delaying my response. "I wouldn't be privy to that information," I finally answered. "Wouldn't be privy?" she echoed, her vocal pitch ascending in patent surprise. "Whatever do you mean, wouldn't be privy? They are your parents, Eleanor." "I no longer maintain communication with them," I stated plainly, placing her coffee on the coaster before her. "But for what conceivable reason?" She leaned forward, her eyes igniting with the unmistakable fervor of one scenting fresh scandal. "They orchestrated such a magnificent wedding for you. The entire family is still remarking upon its splendor." "I would prefer not to discuss the matter," I asserted with quiet firmness. 3 days subsequent to her visit, my smartphone erupted with a barrage of notifications. Aunt Carol had taken to Facebook, disseminating her skewed interpretation of our conversation in a lengthy post saturated with disappointment and thinly veiled judgment. It truly lacerates my heart to witness such profound ingratitude in the younger generation. I recently visited my niece, who casually informed me she has severed all contact with her parents, the very same parents who just recently bestowed upon her a wedding of unparalleled beauty. All respect for familial bonds seems to have evaporated. Parents sacrifice their all, and this is the recompense they receive. Hashtag ungrateful progeny, hashtag heartbroken beyond words, hashtag sacred family values. The comments cascaded in instantaneously. Distant relatives with whom I hadn't interacted for years metamorphosed into vociferous critics of my character, branding me unappreciative, spoiled, and disrespectful. Even those who typically remained aloof from family squabbles now clamored for explanations, tagging me in aggressive, accusatory responses. But the comment that inflicted the deepest wound was my mother's, appended beneath Aunt Carol's diatribe. It is an undeniable truth. One never truly comprehends one's own children. Some demonstrate gratitude and appreciation for the myriad sacrifices their parents make. Others, well, one can certainly discern the stark difference between my elder and younger daughters. Hashtag profoundly disappointed mother. After hours of seething, staring at my mother's words, each one a sharp, deliberate barb to my heart, something within me finally fractured. Enough, I declared aloud, startling Liam from his reading. I was through with being cast as the antagonist in their self-serving narrative. Trembling with a potent mixture of fury and resolve, I retrieved the canceled check for $95,000 from my financial records, captured a clear photograph displaying the amount unequivocally, and began to compose my own Facebook post. As everyone seems to possess a definitive opinion regarding my relationship with my parents, allow me to illuminate the actual circumstances. Yes, they orchestrated a beautiful wedding for me. No, I did not solicit it. In fact, I had meticulously planned a modest celebration with a $40,000 budget, which I fully intended to finance myself. They insisted upon a far grander affair, pledging to cover all associated costs, precisely as they did for Victoria. 1 week post-nuptials, they presented me with this invoice for $95,000, more than double my original budget. Herein lies the photographic evidence of the check I was compelled to issue, utilizing every cent of our savings earmarked for a down payment on a home. That, and that alone, is the reason I no longer communicate with my parents. I clicked post before a sliver of doubt could dissuade me, attaching the image of the check. The ensuing reaction was both swift and seismic. The very same relatives who had previously maligned me as ungrateful now voiced their profound shock, and the tide of commentary beneath Aunt Carol's original post underwent a dramatic reversal. Many now clamored for its removal, visibly shaken by the revelation of the unvarnished truth. My phone rang just as I was arranging the table for our evening meal. It was Grandma Iris. I could discern the strain in her voice as she inquired, "Eleanor, is there any veracity to what you've posted regarding the wedding invoice?" I drew a deep, steadying breath and recounted the entire sordid affair. I explained how Catherine and Richard had dismissed my desire for a simple, intimate wedding, insisted upon an ostentatious spectacle, and then, with callous precision, presented us with a staggering $95,000 bill immediately following our honeymoon. I detailed how Liam and I had been forced to deplete our house fund to cover this unforeseen and unconscionable expense. As I spoke, a heavy, pregnant silence permeated the line. When I concluded, Grandma Iris finally spoke, her voice a potent amalgam of controlled fury and unwavering resolve. "Those wretched, self-absorbed individuals," she sighed, a world of weariness in her tone. "Listen to me carefully, Eleanor. You are to focus solely on your well-being and that of Liam. I shall address your parents. Grandma, you needn't." "Yes, Eleanor, I most certainly do," she interjected with unyielding firmness. "I have observed their egregious treatment of you, relegating you to the status of a second-class citizen for your entire existence, but this plummets to a new nadir, even for their standards." Her tone hardened perceptibly. "Do not bestow another moment's thought upon them. I will manage this." After we concluded our call, I spent the ensuing hour methodically blocking my parents on every conceivable communication platform: telephone, email, all social media channels. I was unequivocally finished with their insidious games, their relentless manipulation, their false promises of change. A week following my social media expose, I was immersed in dinner preparations when an aggressive, insistent rapping echoed from the front door. Liam was working late, so I was alone when I opened it to confront my mother, her face contorted and florid with unbridled rage. "How could you?" she shrieked, barging past me into our apartment. "How could you possibly run to your grandmother with your fabricated tales?" I stood my ground, my voice remarkably steady. "I fabricated nothing. You dispatched an invoice, I remitted payment, and then I merely presented the unadulterated truth when you attempted to publicly vilify me. You've irrevocably ruined everything." She was verging on hysteria now. "Your grandmother has altered her will because of your machinations. Do you possess even the faintest comprehension of the devastation you've wrought?" Her words landed with the force of a physical blow, yet I maintained my composure. "To what are you referring?" "She's bequeathing almost everything to you." Catherine's voice cracked, a tremor of raw avarice and despair. "The brownstone in Beacon Hill, her portfolio, everything. Tori receives a token sum, and your father and we receive nothing. This is entirely your doing." I processed this startling revelation as my mother continued her venomous tirade. "We had meticulously orchestrated everything," she ranted. "We secured a second mortgage on our home to finance Victoria's wedding, but it was entirely manageable because we intended to settle the debt with our portion of the inheritance. Your grandmother was supposed to divide her estate equitably." Suddenly, the disparate pieces of the puzzle clicked into place with horrifying clarity. "That is precisely why you insisted on financing my wedding," I articulated slowly, the realization dawning. "You presumed you would recoup the expenditure from Grandma Iris's estate regardless. Of course, that was the rationale. But now observe the catastrophic consequences of your actions. We are drowning in debt, and you have successfully alienated your grandmother from us." I couldn't suppress a mirthless laugh, which only served to further inflame her fury. "Well, you recently received a windfall of $95,000 from me for my wedding. That should offer some measure of relief for your financial predicament." Mother's face flushed an even deeper shade of crimson. "We've already allocated those funds. But that is entirely beside the point. You are obligated to rectify the situation. Go to your grandmother, convince her that we've reconciled, that this entire affair was merely a colossal misunderstanding." "No," I replied, the tranquility in my voice belying the adamantine firmness of my decision. "What do you mean, no? You owe us this." But as I regarded her, a profound sense of calm settled over me, an unshakable, immutable resolve. "I owe you nothing," I informed her. "I am done." This was the pivotal moment of my true emancipation from the crushing weight of their expectations and manipulations. As she stormed out, uttering imprecations, I felt a palpable burden lift from my shoulders, cognizant that I had definitively and irrevocably closed that painful chapter of my life. I stated with unwavering firmness, "I owe you absolutely nothing. Not any longer. Your financial entanglements are precisely that, yours. I will not engage in deceit with Grandma Iris to facilitate your access to funds to which you were never legitimately entitled." Before she could unleash another volley of insults, I strode to the door, opened it wide, and gestured pointedly for her to depart. When she hesitated, I gently but resolutely guided her out of the apartment, closed the door, and engaged the deadbolt. She continued to vociferate and pound on the door for approximately 15 more minutes before her tirade subsided and she finally retreated. The following day, Victoria called, her voice laced with accusation. "How could you inflict this upon them?" she demanded. "They provided you with everything, just as they did for me, and this is your method of repayment?" "They provided me with nothing, Victoria. They presented me with an invoice," I replied, my voice devoid of emotion. "They are your parents. They have sacrificed immeasurably for our benefit." "No," I corrected her gently. "They sacrificed for your benefit. I was merely the contingency plan for their retirement strategy." Victoria denounced me as cruel and heartless before abruptly terminating the call. And just like that, I comprehended that I had lost my sister as well. But strangely, a profound sense of acceptance settled within me. I continued to see Grandma Iris with unwavering regularity. She would join Liam and me for dinner every Sunday, and we conversed almost daily via telephone. Occasionally, acquaintances would inquire if I missed my family. I always responded with unvarnished honesty. I miss the idealized family I once yearned for, not the family that actually constituted my reality. Over time, I have come to understand that sometimes the most courageous act one can perform is to decisively close the door on toxic relationships, even when those relationships involve one's own parents. Asserting my self-worth had cost me my connection with my parents and sister, but it had also liberated me from a lifetime of insidious manipulation and crushing disappointment. It was not an effortless decision, but it was one that empowered me to inhabit a life defined by my own values and unassailable truth, enveloped by individuals who offered genuine care and unwavering support.